Hi, it's Mark from Top Local. We're here with Bernie Pawlik. Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver, Vancouver's favorite auto service experience. 17-time winners of Best Auto Repair in Vancouver as voted by their customers. How you doing, Bernie?
I'm doing very well.
So we're going to talk about a Ford F-150. You did some rear differential work on this vehicle. What was going on with this truck?
Well, this vehicle had some noises coming from the back end. It's noticeable when you're driving down the road. There's a bit of a growling sound, and so that's what we were repairing on this vehicle.
So what did you determine the cause to be?
Well, the cause was inside the differential. The bearings were noisy, and how we find that, when someone brings a vehicle to us for a noise like this, we will road test the vehicle, listen to the noise, and quite often we can get a pretty good idea where it might be coming from. From there, we put it up on a hoist, and we have a listen to the bearings in the drivetrain with the stethoscope, and we can hear, we can listen to different areas around underneath the vehicle. So there's 4 bearings inside the differential. There's also a bearing on this particular truck out at each wheel. It's the axle bearing. So we have a listen to those, and then we can kind of determine where the noise is coming from. And on this vehicle, it was noisiest in the differential itself.
So which bearing did you find worn out?
The culprit was one of the carrier bearings. The carrier is the big piece where the axles slide into that section. It's a large piece with the ring gear, and there's a bearing on each side of that. There's also pinion bearings. That's the shaft that attaches to the drive shaft, and that's the sort of small piece. I don't have pictures of everything, but I do have one photo to share of our worn out bearing, which is kind of cool to look at. So here is the picture. This is the close-up view of the carrier. So sort of where my mouse is pointing, that's one of the bolts that holds the ring gear to the differential, and the ring gear is on the other side. We can't see it, but this is the carrier bearing, and you can see that should be a beautiful, shiny, smooth piece of metal, and as you can see, it looks like there's just chunks and pieces missing. So that was the cause of the noise. That was the worst bearing. The other ones all had some wear, but this one was definitely the worst.
So when you do this, do you replace all of the bearings?
We do. Yes, we do. We replace them all because they're all worn to a certain extent. Also, when this is worn, of course, there's little metal filings and pieces, and they've gone through the whole differential. And fortunately, usually bearings are the most common thing to wear out in differentials. If you let them get bad enough and the bearings actually start getting sloppy, then you start getting play in the gears and you can start breaking gears. But generally, bearings are the most common things that wear out. If you change them, right when you start hearing noise, usually you don't need to do a whole lot more.
So here's an esoteric kind of thing. Are there much difference in sound depending on which bearing it is?
Yeah, there is actually. For us, to provide an accurate estimate to our customer, we always like to know which part and which piece is noisy. Differentials are interesting because they take the drive shaft, which is basically the longitudinal motion along the vehicle, say in a rear-wheel drive car, and that's bolted up to the pinion, which spins at the same speed as the drive shaft, which is coming from the back of the transmission. So it's spinning at a very high speed. It attaches to the ring gear and the differential carrier, and that gear is usually about 3 to 4 times the size of the pinion gear. So it slows the rotation down. So you can generally, if you listen, if it's a differential noise, if it's a pinion bearing, the noise will be a lot fast. It starts happening a lot faster. As soon as you start moving, the noise gets louder immediately. Whereas a carrier bearing, it takes a little while because it's rotating with the speed of the wheel. So you can almost, I've had quite a few vehicles where I go, oh, it sounds like it's got a bad wheel bearing, and then you listen, all the wheel bearings are quiet, and then it's a carrier bearing because it's spinning at exactly the same speed as the wheel. So this is how we can kind of determine which bearing is worn. So carrier bearings tend to be also a little subtler in sound than pinion bearings, but it depends from vehicle to vehicle.
Sure. So how did you repair this?
This differential? We basically replaced all the bearings, cleaned everything. So we removed, dismantled everything, cleaned it, then cleaned it, then reassembled it, made sure all the backlashes of the gears and the ring gear pattern was proper, and say, yeah, changed all the bearings, cleaned everything out. That's the important thing, and then reassembled it. The bearings are, they're all pressed on to, like, it's a fair bit of work to press everything on and off. They're tight fit. We have good hydraulic presses and tools that make life a little easier.
So do you see a lot of differential issues in Ford trucks?
We do a fair number of them, but they're actually overall they're quite reliable, because we do service an awful lot of Ford trucks. So I can't say that differentials are really a weakness or a problem. Especially I find a lot of the larger ones, the 3/4 ton and 1 tons, they almost seem to have less differential problems because they're just built so tough. But if for someone who's hauling a lot of really heavy loads continuously, those differentials will wear. But if you're not hauling a lot of heavy loads, then those differentials can last almost forever.
So there you go. If you got a growl in your back end, these are the guys to see in Vancouver, Pawlik Automotive. You can reach them at 604-327-7112 or check out their website, pawlikautomotive.com. We have 4 years plus of videos on there, tons of information about every kind of vehicle just about that there is. Thanks a lot, Bernie.
Thanks, Mark.